For this question 1, okay, the main thing that you are being tested are on fractions. So if you look at the operations with the fraction, so the fraction is being multiplied and divided. So when you look at a question like this, right, you should recall, okay, what are the steps for fraction times fraction or fraction divided by fraction. Okay, so basically when we do fraction times fraction, okay, maybe we can make it this way. So under the idea of fraction times fraction, okay, so for example, it's like two fraction multiply with each other. So it can be top times top, bottom times bottom. So that's one of the thing. So for the part that is under divide, so if we have a divide, so generally we will flip. So there is a reciprocal. So we'll reciprocal the fraction after the divide sign. So that will be the basic idea first. Okay, beside the basic idea, okay, we also have like the idea of simplification. So the simplification idea will be you actually need to do some cancellation. So the cancellation can happen purely with later on at part 1, you will see that it's pure cancellation. At part 2, the cancellation can only happen after factorize. So factorize, then cancel. The technique is actually very standard. So you just need to be able to cancel until the final answer, there's nothing for you to cancel. So, okay, but because certain thing will involve factorize, so obviously you also got to recall your 4 steps of factorization. So it can be take out common factor. It can be the grouping method. It can be a squared minus b squared. It can be the cross factorization. You can be doing this, or you can be doing the box method, or what we call the tic-tac-toe method. So that will be the generic idea first. So when you approach a question, so it's good that you have the topic in mind, then think about the technique. Okay, my emphasis is always technique doesn't change. So you just be able to recognize the topic, execute the technique. So for part 1, most people got it wrong simply because you can start off correctly. Then later on, you will cancel. Sometimes you make careless mistake in your cancellation, or some of you, right, will end up with answers that can still be cancelled further. Okay, so it's going to be quite messy if you are not organized. Okay, so if you would like to be organized, okay, this is one technique that I can suggest. So these are the main idea first. I'm going to erase the main idea. So make sure you have copied the main idea. So there are 3 fractions for question 1. And there is a divide here. So there is a divide. So I'm going to be flipping. So I'm going to be flipping. So it will be like this. And then there will be a bracket here. Okay, so you can do a little bit of side working. Okay, you can do it in pencil. So it will be easier if you have done it in pencil. So do you realize I gave the power 3? Okay, so you do it sideways first. 3 cube is a very common careless mistake. 3 cube is 27. There will be some of you who have written 3 cube as 9. So that one is a common careless mistake. This one is also another issue. Some people will get this wrong. So n square is repeated. 3 times. So if it's repeated 3 times, you will realize that you are ending up with 6. So for question 1, right? So what you can do is you simplify the fraction first. Okay, you flip over and you simplify at the side. You don't need to show your side working. You just need to make sure that your side working is correct. So the last fraction, there's no bracket, so that's fine. So now we are faced with 3 multiplication. 3 multiplication is not difficult. It's just top times top. It's just that you got 3 numerator to multiply. You got 3 denominator to multiply. But it's going to be quite complex. So for me, what I did was individually, I see whether there's things to cancel or not. So for example, okay, I look at this part. I just look at this fraction. Is there anything I can cancel? So before I multiply, right, I can cancel the 12, I can cancel the 3. And nothing else that I can cancel further for the first fraction. So before I multiply, I can choose to simplify first. Of course, you can multiply already, then simplify. But here, because we are dealing with 3 of them, I think it might be easier if you simplify first. So then I look at the second fraction. Okay, the second fraction doesn't look like there's anything that I can cancel. Okay, the numbers cannot be simplified. And m and n at the bottom cannot be cancelled. So there's nothing to cancel. Okay, but if I look at the last one do have quite a bit of things to cancel. So this is where you can do your side working. So you do your side working, okay, you will realize that the number can be reduced to a 9 and a 8. Okay, the number can be reduced to a 9 and a 8. And then I got double M. I got 4 of the N. At the bottom, I got 1. So I can do my cancellation first. So do you realize I'm trying to be very organized so that I don't make careless mistake. So you can do it at the side. You don't need to show your teacher. Okay, you do it at the side. So you focus on one fraction at a time. So I will get 9m n squared. At the bottom, I got nothing left except an 8. So if you look, I managed to simplify each of the fraction first. So if I realize each of the fraction cannot be simplified, then I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom. So there, you should also be very organized in multiplying the top. So when I multiply the top, I will gather all the numbers first. So 4 times 8 times 9. Then I will gather the m. So I'm also very organized in my multiplication. So you realize you got m, you got a mm, and you got a last m. So this one is mm. So that means you actually get 4 of them. So I'm trying to be very organized in my multiplication. I multiply my number, then I start to multiply the m. Okay, then I also try to multiply the n. So if you look, so I got 3 of them. So I multiply them in order. So I multiply the numbers first, I multiply the algebra. So be very organized in your algebra. Then the last one is there's just a single p. So that will be my numerator multiplication. Okay, then let's go to the bottom. So when we go to the bottom, it will be the same thing. You look at the 3 denominator. The number will go first. The number will go first, and you got n6. There is a n6, and then there is a p square. So this is what I'm getting after I'm trying to be very organized with my numerator times numerator. Okay, after this, you can punch calculator. So this part, if you punch calculator, your calculator will give you a 4 and a 3. That means you punch your calculator, it will just get reduced to 4 thirds. Okay, then I'm going to cancel individually. So you realize that m power 4 is so low. So actually there's nothing for me to cancel. Okay, for the n, there is something for me to cancel. So there are 3 of them on top. There are 6 of them at the bottom. So I can cancel them carefully. So you look at what is left. So there is a n cubed left, and then there is a p. So before you call this your final answer, you got to make sure you got no more cancellation. M is alone, N is alone, as in like, can you see M is here? There's no other M at the bottom. So N cube is here. There's also no N in the numerator to cancel. So P also nothing. So you got to ensure that your final answer got nothing to cancel before you can call it your final answer. So some of you, your answer in your final answer, you still got things to cancel. Okay, so that is cancellation. They will need to execute your cancellation in a very organized way. If you are not organized, one single careless, that's it, your whole thing is gone. So your brain has to be very logical. So if you look at how I present, some of you present without equal sign. So you should have equal sign to link you step by step. Some of you didn't even have your flow. That means you don't flow from line 1 to line 2, line 3 to line 4. There's no flow, some of you. You just anyhow cancel. So nobody knows what's going on. And I bet you yourself also don't know what you are doing if your cancellation is very messy. So that's one thing that a lot of people subject themselves to. So all the side working that we did just now, you don't have to show the marker. So you just have to do it at the side. Do it at the side, or you can ask for extra piece of paper. So for the second one, you need to factorize, then you cancel. But in this second question, right, we also have a divide. So which means I will be flipping. I'm going to change it to a multiplication. Okay, so if you're going to do your second part, you might want to factorize one by one first. You check which one is factorizable. So the first thing I check will be this 4y squared. So I'm not even attempting any cancellation first. I'm trying to factorize. You can have your factorized column first. So this should fall under the cross method. Okay, so I'm just going to assume that you should be able to do your cross method. Okay, that is also a possible careless mistake. Some people, they factorize, they know that it's cross method, but they got sign error. Okay, so after this, I'll look at this. I'm very organized also. Okay, so this one looks so plain, but I can do a take out common factor. So I already gotten 2 factorization. And what about this? This will be also take out common factor. So I got 3 factorization already. The last one need not be factorized, cannot be factorized. But this one is actually the same as 4y plus 1. So this is not a factorization. Okay, so this is not a factorization. Okay, so I'm going to erase my part 1. So before I attempt to factorize and cancel, I have my factorized column first. So I can replace this with my factorized column answer. So you realize you already factorized, so you just put in your factorized answer. So that means to start the question, you focus on the factorization. The denominator also has been factorized. The second fraction, you are flipping. So the top already been factorized. 1 plus 4y is the same as 4y plus 1. So after you manage to factorize, you check for common bracket that you can go for cancellation. So for example, 4y plus 1 can be cancelled. You cancel in a bracket format. X plus 3 also can be cancelled. So after that, whatever left, it doesn't seem that I can cancel anymore. So when you can't cancel anymore, you do the numerator times numerator. So if I do the numerator times numerator, this is what I got. In the denominator, I only have a 3. So the working is not long, but you've got to be factorizing very carefully first. So this question is dealing with multiplication and division of fraction. So we're going to jump to question 4. Question 4 also deal with fraction, but we are dealing with the addition and subtraction. So when we do fraction plus fraction, fraction minus fraction, generally we need to make same denominator. So we need to make same denominator because it will lead you to a single fraction. But sometimes, before making same denominator, you have to factorize first. So back to the factorization idea. Okay, so for example, here for part A, I'm gonna add the 2 fraction. So you observe the denominator. You observe what is common between them. Do you realize B is already common? So for the first fraction, only C is missing. So you just need to multiply a C. For the second fraction, A is missing. So you will multiply with a A. So upon doing this, you realize that you got same denominator already. And then you can just combine them into a single fraction. So even this, I think some of you make mistake. Some of you never check for common denominator first. That means some of you didn't check that B is already common. So you actually don't need to do anything to B. But some of you actually did. For part B, some of you thought that x minus 2 is the same as 2 minus x. So there are some of you who thought that these two looks the same. Okay, so you have to take note. X plus 2 will be the same as 2 plus x. But x minus 2 is not the same. It's not the same as 2 minus x. They are not the same, but I can twist something. So I can do something like 2 minus x. I factorize out a negative. So when I factorize out a negative, then I will get something like this. So in fact, for part B, this part I can factorize. I factorize out a negative. So I factorize out a negative. Okay, so now there's an extra negative. So this negative will be combined with the plus. So that's how I got a minus. And the denominator is the same. So you end up subtracting the numerator. So you must do it with an equal sign. That means you must have the thinking. One step leads you to another step. It is your systematic thinking. So every step, there's actually a technique, something that you do. So that is for part B. Okay, so I'm going to erase off. We're going to focus on part C. Part C, there will be things that you can factorize. How you know? Because you got something like p squared. So we observe first. So I'm going to erase this part. So for part C, you might want to do your factorization column first. So here, something I can factorize. So out of the 4 methods, obviously, this is just taking out common factor. Q plus 1, nothing to factorize. So obviously, the bottom part got a lot to factorize. So this one is 3 terms. So this one is the cross method or the box method, whichever that you are using. So for this one, you will be getting P plus 6Q, P minus 2Q. So after you factorize, okay, don't try to make same denominator first. Okay, we try to factorize first. So change each of the denominator. So you might want to bracket this up in case you make sign error. So before you make same denominator, observe what is already common. So do you realize these 2 brackets is already common? So for the first one, I just need to multiply a P plus 6Q. I multiply a P plus 6Q. For the second one, I just need to multiply a 2. Then I will get same denominator. So for the same denominator part, right, you don't need to expand. You can just leave it. So when you have same denominator already, it's just numerator minus numerator. Top minus top. Then you just have to be very careful in your expansion. So if you are careful enough, Okay, so you just have to be very careful. So you will get P plus 4Q minus 2. So in the numerator, you no longer able to factorize. So there's no more cancellation. So that is how you approach. So you're going to see this very common. So every time you see fraction, right, you have to come to the same technique. It's always factorize, whether you need to make same denominator or not, or whether you cancel, or whether you do a flip. Okay, so these two questions will summarize fraction plus fraction, fraction divided by fraction, fraction plus minus fraction. So if you didn't get these two questions correct, please learn from the question and then apply the same technique. I emphasize again, the technique doesn't change. You are going to keep seeing this kind of question. So approach it with the fixed technique. The question will change, but the technique doesn't change. It's just that you have to mentally tell yourself, these are the technique, I must do this method. So it doesn't make sense that you're going to do any other method. So any other method you're going to do for this kind of question, you're going to not get any marks at all.